friendships have been on my mind a lot lately.
What about them?
Well, so my grandparents have tasked me with cleaning out their Google Photos and exporting all the photos and putting them onto a hard drive for them.
That's a process.
It is when they have photos going all the way back to 2006.
Ooh.
We're talking a lot of pictures. And in this process, I have started to see pictures from me as like a kid, when I was in like the 7th grade, all the way up to prom in high school.
Wow.
And like, various pictures of like camping trips and friends and
people over the years.
Yes, and a couple pictures of a good friend of mine in high school came up. And it just kind of triggered this thought of like sadness almost because that friendship's over, but also just a really introspective kind of mindset of like I am, in this period now of transition and there's a lot going on in my life and these people haven't been in my lives and haven't been involved for so long that it feels like an afterthought. But at the same time, it's also like I wish things were different between me and said person.
So you're kind of like thinking about that chapter in your life.
Yeah.
And how those pages have kind of closed up. Yeah,
a little backstory. We, friends all throughout high school and everything. And then I got into a relationship and then that relationship caused manipulation to where I started to look at these people in a certain way. They didn't like the person that I was with, never told me about it, never like confronted it to me directly and said, hey, listen, the reason that we've been withdrawn, the reason that we're kind of pulling away is because the friendship and the relationship, it just isn't working out. And I never really got a chance to like do something about it. Not that I would have in the moment. Looking back on it now, yes, but in the moment, if they would have said something to me, I probably would have, told them to go fly a kite. And that's, bad on me, definitely. But friendship got kind of severed, and then after everything happened, me and that relationship kind of ended. I got a different side from somebody, and that caused me to reach out to this person. And in the process of reaching out, I thought that things were kind of, at least, put to bed.
Enough time had passed.
Right. And at least like resolved somewhat. And then after that, tried to reach out to this person on a handful of occasions. And, just to kind of foster that friendship because it is a two-way street. And, it was like a long distance. They lived in a different state and all this stuff. But I still wanted to do my best to like reach out and do my part.
Yeah, as a friend.
And then, it was not reciprocated. And I just had to come to grips with the fact that it really, the moment for me was like unfollowing that person on Instagram. Because I would always see posts, shoot a message in the DMs, like responding to like a story, and then, text every now and then, like, hey man, just thinking about you, blah, blah, blah. And, for after months of no response, I was like, all right, I'm kind of gonna give up. But then seeing the picture, I was like, man, I want to send this to this person and be like, look at how different we are. Look at how
much time
how much time has passed, and remember this moment, blah, blah, blah. But that, that friendship's kind of dead now.
Do you have any regrets?
Yeah, I mean, well, I wouldn't necessarily call them regrets. There are things that I would have done differently, sure. But that would alter a lot, I think.
Do you feel like it was a necessary thing to happen to get where you were?
Well, for instance, I don't think that the boys and I would have a friendship, at least as strong as it is now. So you can take like going to Japan. You can take probably, all the events of me leading up to going to jail. Like you can take that entire relationship. You can take this podcast even. Like I don't think any of that would have happened had things been done differently.
Yeah, because you and I have been friends for a number of years, but it wasn't until 4 years ago where we got
Right.
fairly close, or maybe 5.
Yeah, it was like a little bit after graduation.
Right. Because yeah, I mean, I would say you and I were like casual friends, and we talked to each other in passing or over an Xbox. But after all that stuff happened, and found a close friend and all of that.
Right. Well, and I think there's looking on at all the decisions that were made since that point, and then looking at where I would be as a person now. I think that what has happened has been necessary, but I do wish that there were a little bit more forgiveness on both sides, just in general. I think that things happen and people just they forget about, or at least maybe the friendship leading up to certain events wasn't important enough to like maintain it in the long term. But for instance, you have a friend, friends for a really long time. If things go south, you try your best to reach out, and they don't reciprocate, and then possibly years go by, and you run into that person or something. Then that person is fake to you, or
Oh, how you been?
yeah, like very surface level, and you're like, did we not share all of our formative years together? Did we not basically grow up together? I know things about you that most people don't know.
Yeah, like we spilled very personal stuff to each other over the years.
Shared personal moment, like seasons of our lives together.
Trust and just bestowing friendship, meeting family, and all that stuff. And
right,
just to see something like that fade out, I think is really sad. But I mean, I think that's just kind of the nature of friendships. And at one day you can be best friends with somebody, but some weird course of action will happen and you don't talk to them anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's always, it's sad, but at the same time, again, I think it's necessary. But, there's always, I think if there's more room for like, hey, let's just, clearly I'm a different person, clearly you're a different person. Like you and I could be friends at this point now, and it would be like two brand new people meeting each other because so much of us has changed. Like our friendship now would be night and day different
than how we first met.
How we were when we were stupid kids. Yeah, I think the whole talk of like friendships and broken relationships, like it has such an effect. It kind of goes back to that music talk when you link certain like songs and you link certain playlists and sounds and artists to specific times in your life. When you see these pictures that pop up, or you do something that you guys did together or whatever, it triggers that like nostalgia. And especially if that friendship has ended on a bad note, you're like, what do I do with all these memories?
Especially because they're like real world landmarks where like you spent time at a specific place.
Yeah.
And you pass that and like, oh, I remember doing this with that person. But all you can do is just kind of look back and appreciate the memory and just take it for what it is.
Yeah, the worst is when you had like a group of friends and you introduce your group of friends to somebody, and then that person is now better friends with the group of friends than you ever were.
Yeah.
Like I saw a picture on Instagram recently and I was like, dang.
I introduced you guys.
Like all of them are still hanging out. And I'm the one, and that's how you're like, oh, like I was the problem. Or not necessarily the problem, but I was the person.
They thought you to be the problem.
Yeah, like they all thought I was the person that, didn't belong in the friendship. And that's never a good feeling.
Yeah, I had that happen to me in middle school where like I was really close friends with somebody, and then because when you're in middle school, like that's where merging kids from other elementaries go to one
or middle school, or and
then so like he had a friend that went to a different school, and then they got close friends, and for a while, all three of us were hanging out, and then it came to a point where they're like, "Oh, we don't want to hang out with Anthony anymore." They were a little bit more rude about it, but
Right.
I got X'd out of there, and I was kind of wandering solo for a while until I met the lads in high school.
Yeah, that was, I mean, my friend group changed like middle school to high school and then high school to graduation, like once we graduated. And then even like a few years after, you know, my friend group like kind of went through another change.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think about how fragile relationships are. Like if you could quantify a relationship as an item, it would be like the most flimsy piece of glass, because all it takes is, you know, some friendships is a small thing, some friendships it's a big thing, but, you know.
I would say like a fine china. Like it's something you regard really highly, and it's kind of kept in this place, but someone could very easily grab it and, you know, throw it.
Right, but I mean, like, you know, if you fine china example, someone grabs it too hard, someone like latches onto the friendship too hard, and the other person isn't as careful with it, it's as fragile as, you know, I mean, relationships nowadays, like, that's why I say I'm so thankful I don't have to do the whole dating thing, because, dude, like, you know, oh, you text a girl too much, or
someone liked your post
and you reached out, you know, you liked someone's post like 2 days in a row or something like that, and they like trip out and they're like, oh, he's like a stalker, crazy, creepy, whatever, clingy, whatever. So it's like, that kind of ease, I wouldn't say ease of access, but I would say more of like a willingness to just cut ties with people, and just, you know, I understand cutting toxic people out of your life. I'm all for that. But, you know, if you said something that rubbed me the wrong way and I was like, no, I don't want to be your friend anymore, like, it's just as fragile as that.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting thought if you were to like personify friendship into an item, the thought of what that item would be.
Would you ever value a friendship more than like staying true to yourself? Meaning, like, if it came to a choice between, let's say you had the option to withhold information from a friend, but you know it in your heart to tell them the truth, but like at the sake of the friendship, what would you do?
Well, I think it depends on the situation. For instance, you know, if something is like, I mean, back when we were kids, what I can think of was like, you were out with your family and you saw somebody's mom like cheating on their dad.
Oof.
Like, you know, and to tell your friend, that's like, as kids, that's something that was just like beyond comprehension. But like looking back on it now, you know, cheating, like let's say your friend's getting cheated on. You know, if I would always, I guess, put myself in the shoes of, if someone saw my dad cheating on my mom, I would want someone to tell me, because then I would go tell my mom and I would want that guy kicked out.
Right.
You know, I would want that relationship over. But, you know, so I guess before I make a decision, I always put myself in the shoes of like, if I was in that position, what would I want? So if, you know, you found out that, you know, the girl that I was seeing was cheating on me and didn't say anything, I would almost look at you worse than I did the girl.
Yeah, like they did their act.
Yeah, they did their act, but like my homie knew about it and didn't say anything to me about it. That's a level of trust that's violated between like you and I, when you're not even a part of it.
Yeah.
You don't even need to be a part of the situation, and yet now you're a factor into like severed relationship.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, being put in that situation, like I wouldn't be able to live with myself knowing that I knew something. And especially if like this person like kept on seeing somebody, like there's no way I could just turn cheek and be like, no, it's none of my business.
Right.
It's like, I feel like it's just in my nature of the character that I am, that like I would have to say something.
Well, how do you be supportive? Like, how do you be supportive of the friendship knowing what you know when that person doesn't? So you're, you know, let's say a 1 year anniversary, or even let's say even as far as like an engagement, you know, that person is like, hey, we're engaged, and you know that person has gotten cheated on. and you're about to watch them make a decision that latches them to, each other
That will
forever.
change their life.
Yeah, like, hopefully forever if they're getting married. And so then you have to look at, and then let's say they're married for 5-6 years and it's still happening. You're like,
I feel like that
I could have stopped it.
That guilt
would eat you alive.
Yeah, just lingers.
I always wonder how much effort is like enough effort with a friendship. Knowing that, guilt and all those things would play into your performance as a friendship, or as a friend rather. How much effort, how far do you go? Do you tell the person?
I think it depends on how you value the friendship and what you think of yourself. Like for me in those situations, I always feel like I have to stay true to myself and do what I think is right.
And what does staying true to yourself mean? Like doing what's right. What does that mean to you?
I guess just based off of the ethics that I believe in, which is, putting the truth first over the friendship because I value the person. So I would say I would, in a situation where there is, kind of valuable information to be told, I feel like I owe it to the person to let them know what's going on. What about you?
I'm the same way. The golden rule seems, corny and cliche, but I want to do right by others the way that I would hope they would do right by me. And so, if someone knew something, let's say I'm famous and my business manager is stealing from me, and someone knew,
yeah,
and didn't say anything to me about it, and let this guy take $15-16 million from me, and then I find out after the fact, yeah, I'm going to be mad at the person that stole the money from me. But I'm also going to be mad at the friend who knew something about it and didn't say anything. Because I always look at, going back to like how it could be avoided. It 100% could have been avoided. And I always wonder, how far, if you allow, the way that I would look at it is if you allow something to go on, knowing that thing is bad for that person, at what point do you become an accomplice in the pain?
Do you feel like it's not always the right choice to do right? Or would you rather, I guess, choose the kind route to... But I mean, like, I feel like it comes out eventually, right?
Well, my thing is what's your definition of kind? Because to me, knowing, like, if you're setting the example of getting stolen from, the kind thing for that person to do would be to tell me ahead of time or with as much notice as they can so I can stem the losses, as best as I can. But so that to me is the kind thing to do, because I'm always, I always associate the kind thing and the right thing to do, because most of the time, like, the right thing is going to be the kind thing. If you have a long-term relationship with somebody and, you guys have a good trust system going back and forth, and then you were to do something that, breaks that trust, that's not a kind thing. That's not, treating that person with respect. That's not treating that person with the care that you would want that person to treat you.
I bring that up because, I recently kind of went through a hardship with somebody, and a friendship I believe has kind of been damaged, but I was sent this quote that I've kind of been thinking about, but it's: choose being kind over being right, and you'll be right every time. So what would you make of that?
Well, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, when you treat someone with kindness, when you look at treating somebody with kindness, it depends on that person's definition, because your definition of treating someone with kindness is being honest, being forthright, and trying to get that person to avoid situations that are going to get them hurt. Like, that to you is the kind thing to do.
Yeah, I think in the context of this quote, they're treating the two things as different. entities.
then I disagree.
I kind of felt that way too, but
Because being right isn't always the good choice. Like, you know, being right, if you felt like I was, you know, not, you had changed as a friend and you started to be, you know, rude and very curt and, you know, standoffish, and I started to back away, you know, because I don't want to deal with that. But then I also, you know, came to you and was like, hey, listen, this is kind of how you've been treating me, blah, blah, blah. I think that, you know, I would really appreciate it if you could at least, you know, do something about it and stop treating me the way that you have been. And then you were to be like, nah, man, you know, screw you, get out of here. And then several months later, you know, and our friendship ends, right? And then several months later, you come back and you're like, hey, man, I realized that was a crappy thing for me to do, and I'm sorry. You know, I was right in that moment, but that, you know, what you could have taken in that moment was not necessarily a kind impression from me. You know, you in that moment wouldn't necessarily think that was something that was like a kind act on my part, calling you out on that. But then if I was right and you did realize that you were being a jerk, then you, like, me being right is still kind of the kind thing, but it didn't feel kind in the moment.
I gotcha.
It's hard because when you use words like right and wrong, it's very...
It paints them in different...
Yeah, it's a very ambiguous term.
Yeah.
Because what's right to me is what the Bible says. And so, you know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and kindness. But at the same time, I would never, ever, you know, sacrifice my beliefs. You know, if there's someone that's saying, hey, you know, you need to worship my God, like, I know that's not right, even though everyone else around me is doing that. So right is kind of a...
Depends on the person.
It depends on
like
the person.
Your definition of right is
yeah
much different from mine. One thing I wanted to get your take on was, if a friendship does fizzle out, do you think there is chance at redemption, or do you feel like you would rather leave that to the past?
I think there's always room for redemption. However, that draws back to the, you know, how much effort do you put in? Because I don't think that it's fair for you for the next 10 years to reach out to somebody that doesn't want to be your friend. But I don't think that there is, or I don't think that redemption is impossible. Because that person could have a change of heart. You could have a change of heart.
Different time.
Yeah, different time. Time can go by. You could experience different life scenarios that can change your point of view and your worldview. I think all of those things have a factor into a friendship being redeemed.
Do you think, though, like, you know, let's say, you know, you were in a friendship and the person decided to stop being friends with you. Obviously that causes pain to you. And so time goes by and they realize, oh, hey, maybe that person was just trying to do right by me, but at the cost that they decided to, you know, distance themselves from you. I mean, do you think it's right of them to, like, oh yeah, I made a mistake? Or do you feel like you owe it to yourself? You're like I tried my best and you thought I was, like, trying to do you wrong.
Are you in a position of forgiveness? Is what I would ask. Because, you know, for someone that just kind of ghosted me out of nowhere, like a good friend of mine just stopped reaching out to me ever. I can, you know, number one, I can sit here and hold resentment for that person, so that if I do run into them, you know, at the 20-year high school reunion or whatever, you run into that person and you're like, oh, I still am holding this grudge for 20 years. To me, that means that I've been sitting in the past
thinking about those
things for 20 years. And, you know, I've been out of high school now for 6 years. And I already, in that 6 years, have had moments where I'm, like, holding on to things, petty grudges from high school. And I'm like, I'm not in high school anymore. Why am I still living in the high school mindset? Right. And so I don't want to be held back from, like, fully experiencing, the present, because if you have one foot that's in the past, you can't you can't truly appreciate what you have in front of you.
Do you think it's just time to move on?
Well, I think that you have to make a decision with yourself whether or not you're ready to forgive.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with that right now with my family. I mean, some members of my family have, let's just say that they've been less than great family members. And even, it's been a couple years, and even now, I still struggle sometimes with just kind of forgiving them and moving on. But, it's hard when that person is still doing the things that you want to be able to forgive them for from years ago.
So do you think you will forgive?
Yeah, eventually.
Just takes time.
Yeah, it takes time, but it also takes a lack of pride in my own thing. Like, this is one of those cases where being right isn't the right thing, and being kind is the right thing.
But it's
because
difficult.
Being right is me saying, like, hey, you have done something. You need to come to grips with what you've done and be, like, stop just putting the blame on other people and acting like this thing never happened. That's that's like the right thing to do, in my opinion, for that person to change their behavior and come, like, apologize for treating certain people the way that they have. But if that person, is never going to do that, then the kind thing for me to do would just be to forgive that person.
Yeah, it's different for everybody, but I think that is a good stance. I kind of have somewhat of a similar situation with a family member that I was really close with a few years ago, and due to some nature of events, we don't talk anymore, and I haven't wanted to see this person. I feel like that is just kind of in the past, and they are family, but like just off of what happened, it's hard for me to want to see them and talk to them again. I mean, obviously there's like a Facebook message or reaching out like that, I don't have no problem with, but to be in the same presence, I think is hard for me just because of what happened.
Yeah, like let's say there's a family reunion. You go to the family reunion and you walk in and that's the first person that's standing right there, and then you have to, in order to get to the rest of the family, you have to go through that one person.
I mean, at that point, like I wouldn't be like, oh, I can't talk to you. But,
yeah, you're not going to be some petty, like,
yeah,
oh, you can't sit here.
Yeah, I would definitely talk to him. I just think, I guess, getting back to where things were, that's just not in the cards.
So back on the friendships being redeemable, do you think that, let's say friendships are redeemable, do you think that they will ever be restored to what they used to be, even if they do get redeemed?
I think there's like a two-part answer, because I think, no, they don't ever go back, but they change in a different way that might be better or just different, but in a good way. Like,
okay,
like this event happened, and maybe it caused the friendship or relationship to grow stronger, or just change kind of the beat of things. So I would say that there's like a two-part answer, but it also depends if you're, willing to allow it to go that way.
Well, it's okay. You and I stop being friends, and then 10 years go by, and then we rekindle our friendship. Our friendship wouldn't be the same as it was now.
It would be different, though.
It would be different, but it could potentially be better than what it ever was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Do you think that, relationships with, like, let's say, would you ever be friends with like an ex-girlfriend?
Well, I have and am with some, but that's a part, I feel, for someone, if only if you want to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel that there is stuff worth, or a person worth hanging on to and connecting with outside of just relationship level. For me, it's always been, just because we didn't work out as a couple doesn't mean we can't be friends.
Right.
But I mean, the breakups have been fairly easy and not I mean, they weren't like Jerry Springer level situations. They were, kind of calmly exited out, and I felt that there was a person there that I still wanted to be in contact with. So I believed that you could be friends with them.
Yeah, that's definitely possible.
Yeah, that's something that I've always been of the mind that, like, there is something there between us, and maybe it's just not the relationship level, but I mean, clearly we care about each other in some way, so it doesn't just have to go all out the window just because, like, we couldn't maintain a relationship.
To the point where if you were to get into a relationship and that person was uncomfortable with you being friends with girls that you had dated, would you still attempt to maintain those friendships? I mean, let's like hypothetically, the girl that you're with is, you're like, this isn't just some random fling. I like really like this girl,
right?
But me and my friend messaging back and forth on Instagram, knowing that we dated, she was like uncomfortable by it. Are you still fostering that friendship? Or are you like, what's that conversation look like?
The conversation would look like, you need to know that, like, I have a friend like this, but if it makes you feel uncomfortable, I would like to know what exactly about it is making you feel uncomfortable, and I would like to reassure you that there isn't something to worry about, and if there are things I can do to kind of amend that, let me know.
Right. But you would still attempt to keep the friendship.
Yeah,
with the ex-girlfriend.
I've never like cut people off when I've been dating somebody just because like they don't like them. Well, I don't know. I
guess it depends on the
I've never
reason.
been in that position though.
Yeah, well, it depends on the reason too. I mean, if they didn't want you to be friends out of just sheer jealousy,
yeah,
like, that's one of those things where it's like, okay, that's like a personal issue.
Yeah,
I want to help you and I want to be able to, like, reassure you in certain areas, and I also think it also depends on how strong the relationship is, because not that this is happening with me, I personally don't have any interest in being friends with any people that I've had relationships with.
Right.
Just because I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
And, the level of effort, me, I'm an all-in kind of friend. And so if you're in my life, like, I'm all in, I'll text you almost every day and ask you how you're doing and, all that kind of stuff. But, so I don't really have the time nor the interest in being friends. But when it comes to past relationships, I would rather be civil.
That's
yeah, I would rather be civil, but not have a close, intimate, personal relationship.
Okay.
Because I think that there's a certain, because I can only imagine, like, putting myself in the shoes of, my girlfriend. Like, if she was really good friends and best friends with some dude that she dated, like, it would be hard for me. I would have not an issue with it, but, my own securities would get in the way, and my own, whatever would get in the way. But I also wouldn't feel comfortable being like, dictating who that person is friends with.
Yeah. I
but if it truly made me uncomfortable and I said something about it, and then my girlfriend just didn't care, that's a different issue. Like, that's not an issue of, oh, you're friends with your ex. No, that's a different issue of, like, you don't care about my feelings and the way that I am presenting an issue to you. That's what you don't care about. And so that would be the thing that I would focus on.
Yeah, I think you would have to, have that conversation
right
about what exactly is the problem here.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think being civil is always the best course of action. Obviously, it's not always possible in certain situations.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I don't know.
You think it's difficult when you've been romantically involved with someone.
Yeah.
Not even talking, a physical relationship. I mean, it can be as simple as, you went out on a couple dates with somebody and, hit it off great, but it just kind of, it ended. Like, when you've looked at that person as a potential suitor, it's hard, at least for me, it's hard to make that distinction going to, like, friend. when you've looked at someone in a romantic eye before and then, nothing comes of it, then to look at that person as a friend, it's like, I guess I always will have that romantic involvement kind of attached. And so that would be one of the reasons why I personally would just not, I would rather be civil to the point where if I ran into that person, like my biggest thing is I want to be to the point where if I run into somebody, it doesn't need to be like I'm trying to avoid that person.
Okay.
I don't want to feel uncomfortable in Walmart knowing that, there's somebody 5 aisles down that I could potentially run into.
Oops.
Like, I don't want that anxiety. So I would rather get to the point where I can publicly acknowledge, hey, how's it going? You well? Good. Awesome. Great to see you. And move on. Doesn't need to be some lengthy 20-minute conversation in the middle of Walmart, whatever. But I also, I don't think that I would hang out with somebody.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't, let's go out and grab a drink and whatever. I couldn't, that couldn't be me.
For me, I guess it just depends, like, on that connection I had with somebody.
Yeah.
Like I said, there have been cases where these are people that I do maintain friendships with, and all is well, and I like, talking to them, getting to see them every now and then. I mean, we're not, like, talking every day, but there is a friendship there. So... yeah, I mean, it's different for everybody.
Friendships are it's an important thing. I am a big advocate in having friends outside of your relationships.
Yeah.
I see like a lot of posts or even just relationships being involved in people's relationships, as like a friend or whatever. And then and you see when they get into a relationship, they just like all contact with their friends cuts out. You stop seeing and hearing from that person. You're like, hey, are we ever going to get to hang out? Like, no, I'm with the girlfriend. It's like, are you ever going to make time for like your homies and all that? Like, I think that it's important for there to be that separation.
Yeah, I feel like there's a specific person's mentality though. Like, if your relationship dictates who you want to hang out with or who you can hang out with, then I think, this person obviously prioritizes his relationship over their friends. And, I don't know if that's right or wrong with them. I wouldn't do that because I would like, both these aspects of my life to kind of be mixed into like, oh, I'm going to bring my person over for dinner when we hang out, or I'm hanging out with you guys tonight and she's doing her own thing.
Well, like, okay, for instance, I would hands down much rather hang out with Gabby than anybody else. I'll just be 100% real. Like, if I got to spend every day with Gabby and nobody else, I'd be fine. I could die happy. However, I think it's important to make room for various relationships and have that time.
But you're also not in that position where it's like you need to make the choice of.
Well, that's the difference.
Like, you hang out with your girlfriend because you want to.
Yes, there is the freedom because it is a desire, not an obligation.
There we go.
So like the desire to hang out with her, and I do, but at the same time, I also have the freedom to make choices to where I can say, hey, I'm going to stay and hang out with my family, or, hey, the boys and I are going to go out and see Godzilla 2, which was awesome, by the way. Well, it was all right.
I wouldn't say it's like knock your socks off, but I was entertained.
Yeah, sure. That's a good way to put
Despite
it.
the...
Yeah. It was just over the top.
The story...
Inconsistencies. Yeah.
But it's a monster flick, and what do you expect?
Yeah, what do you expect? But yeah, I mean, knowing that, like, she's cool with me having my friendship, and then when we get together and hang out, it's like, that's its own separate thing.
Yeah.
I think it's important for relationships to have friends, and so it's really sad to see people they just cut everybody out of their life when they get a relationship. It's like, what do you...
To me, I read that as like, that would be something that I would do if I was like young in high school that I'm like, oh, I'm all in with the relationship and screw my friends. I don't need to see them. But as of now, I'd be like, yeah, I would want, my friends to meet them and, hopefully everyone gets along.
Yeah. Well, I always look at too, I mean, for instance, you find the right person. It sounds kind of bad, honestly, but
go ahead and say it.
Like I feel like sometimes if you find the right girl, it actually helps weed out who's real and who's not. Like, let's say, you're in a relationship and the relationship is good. Yeah. Like, all of the people in your life love this person.
Right.
And then there's the one person that doesn't like that person.
I would like to know.
That's on them, not everybody else. Like, you're saying that out of 100 people, one person is right in thinking that that person's bad. 9 times out of 10, the 99 people are correct. That person's awesome, and there's a flaw with the one person that doesn't see what's great.
I don't have 100 friends.
Well, I don't either. I'm just saying. I mean, family.
Yeah,
let's say, like,
I know.
Your girl meets people at church and all this, like, or work, or whatever your situation is, and then there's one member of your family or one friend of yours that's like, well,
I don't know about this
I don't know. I'm not really feeling it. And it's like, okay, well, what's wrong with you then? Like,
everyone else likes them.
You're the anomaly in this situation, And so So I think it's, as bad as it sounds, it's nice to be able to be like, oh, I know who's real and who's not, or at least have a better insight into who's real and who's not.
Yeah. Also, I'm just a genuinely curious person, so I'm just kind of like...
Well, I would want to know for sure.
Yeah. What about it?
Yeah. What's not vibing? Oh, you don't like her shoes? Why don't you cry me a river, build a bridge, and get over it?
That'd be like the weirdest reason to...
Oh, dude.
Disapprove of somebody.
She had one stray hair that was just bugging me the whole time I met her. Like, dog, what? That's not something for you to judge on.
Yeah.
Nobody can judge on that. Come on now. What are your thoughts on the people that are, like, their standards are impossibly high? Like, let's say friendship or relationship.
I think you need to get a grip. And, like... I don't know. I guess what led you to have those expectations, but do you really think that you're going to get them met?
Right.
If anyone has, like, I'm of the mind that, like, you have kind of these things you look for in somebody, but if somebody has, like, a genuine list and they're like, they need to have this amount of income, they need to have this body type, this hair color, all these things, then I'm like, what are you doing here? Do you really think this is going to happen for you?
Yeah.
Because at that point, you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment. Because it's like, you might get 9 out of 10 of these things, but if that one thing's missing, are you really going to be like, oh, I'll try again in a month?
Right. This is like, is there any room for compromise?
Right. I think with someone with that high expectations, you would hope that there's compromise, but I mean, if they're already that high, they probably are like looking for the jackpot.
Yeah, I don't know if someone maintains very high expectations, they have their list. Oh, how tall are you? Oh, you're 6'4"? Sorry, I only date guys over 6'5". Like, what?
You
want what? What? Don't you just want that person to be taller than you?
Yeah.
Okay, you want that person to be really tall, or much taller than you. You're 4'11". Anything over 5'3" is much taller than you. Like, lower your expectations a little bit.
Literally.
Oh my gosh. I think it's fun. I mean, I've had those friends too, where it's like, even like not necessarily a dating situation, just a friend, but the expectations from that friend are just so, I mean, what do you expect from a friend? I expect you to listen to me when I need you to be.
And I expect you to be down to hang out.
Yeah, I mean, down to, like, kick it and, not be a recluse, but also I'm not expecting you to drop what you're doing and
be readily
come
available
to my aid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also, I don't want this to just be like a whenever you decide you want to be my friend, you can be my friend.
That's a good point.
What about people who have too low of expectation or like that don't meet your expectations? Let's say it's reasonable. Let's say you got out of a very long relationship and you call your buddy and you're like, hey man, me and so-and-so just broke up. Like, I need someone to talk to. And he was like, no, I'm cool. Click.
I think all of my friends are down to like talk because that's just kind of the nature of the people that I hang out with. So if someone was like, oh no, I don't really want to talk about that, then I would know that's not a person I can regard in that nature. I would treat that person more as an acquaintance than a friend. And luckily I don't have people like that in my circle. So
do you think that the quality of friendships are changing?
I mean, over the years my quality of friendships have gotten better, but
well, not necessarily your friendships, just like the idea of friendship in general.
Like,
do you think that there has been a decline in effort or respect, or do you think that the climate of friendships has changed?
I think people get friends for different reasons, and so I mean I can only speak on my behalf and my experiences, and I mean based off what I've seen, I think some people are just not being honest about, I guess, their intentions with things. So yeah, I can only speak for myself. What do you say?
I think so, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard because like it's only what we see from the outside. My quality of friendships have improved as the quantity of my friendships have declined. So the less people that I have, close friendships with,
better connections, but with the smaller pool of people.
Yeah. The less people I have, strong connections with, or even regular connections with, the more it has improved the connections of the people that I do spend time with. But I also, in the same token, looking at it from like an outside perspective, what we only see as friendships is that it's very like selfish friendships. People want friends when they want to go out. People want friends when they, when it's a holiday. That's why people want boyfriends and girlfriends during the holidays, like Christmas time, so that they have someone to pose in front of the tree in Pioneer Square, so that they have someone to go shopping with, so that they have someone to post pictures with, sharing their adventures of what they have going on. And it's this whole idea of the Instagram boyfriend/girlfriend.
We appear to be happy on the gram,
but also, I mean, you use people when you're, that's why the summer. Oh, I want to be single and do whatever I want, but then, come fall, autumn, the wintertime, I'm trying to be booed up, like trying to get booed up. I think that the quality of friendships overall have decreased.
I would say, how often are you seeing that though?
At least, I guess, like, this is where I say it's from the outside looking in. If you look at, if you go to like the Explore tab on Instagram,
oh Lord,
and you just scroll through, right? You see people that post on Twitter or whatever they post, and it's like, oh well, it's cuffing season. The fact that cuffing season is even a freaking saying gives me some indication.
You know what I find strange with Instagram? I've had people that have told me this, but that like, and I mean it totally makes sense, but basically they say that they feel insecure about their lives based off of what other people are posting. So if someone's like posting lavish vacations and doing all these exciting things, they feel insecure about their life because either they don't post as much or post as exotic stuff. So like they only want to present like that best foot forward.
Jordan Peterson, he has an interesting take on social media, and it touches on that exactly. We, for a picture, right? You post a picture. You want to make sure that your angles are right. You want to make sure that the lighting is correct and that you don't look like a homeless person in a garbage fire. And so what we see on Instagram is not the reality. And so in reality, people make their Instagram or their lives out to be better than what it is, which causes insecurity for you if you look at that person with like a, in a comparison form. But then it also is causing like it's a reflection on that person's character as well, because not character, but that person's life as well, because what they're posting on Instagram is not the reality, and they don't want to come to grips with what their reality is. I read something that was interesting. It was like it was some study that showed the more frequency you see posts back and forth from like a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife kind of situation, where you see, constant posts about your significant other. What that really is like a deep insecurity and is signs of like a bad relationship.
Like it's compensation.
Yeah, you're compensating for, your bad relationship. Like I heard some girl, who was posting about her boyfriend every other day.
Ugh.
They hadn't actually seen each other in like 3 months.
Ugh. Also, I mean, what do you even post that often? Like of your significant other, like,
well, just selfies and that's I get so not I frustrated wouldn't be the right word, but very kind of the opposite, where I don't want to sit here and like Gabby and we've said it multiple times that we need to take more pictures, because if you were to look at my Instagram, like, you wouldn't even know that we were dating, because on my actual legit feed, I don't think I've actually posted a picture of her since like Christmas.
Oh, but I mean, you're living in the moment with her.
Exactly. But at the same time, it's gotten to the point now where I want...
Oh, you want...
Yeah, like I want to post about her, because of the fact that we haven't, like, we don't post about each other every other weekend, or every time we're doing something. Like tonight, I was just at the rehearsal dinner for her brother's wedding, and we were sitting there at dinner and we were hanging out the whole night, and we didn't take one picture because we're in the moment. And so her and I have to say, hey, we need to take more pictures, and we never end up doing it. But like, there are some people that every time you hang out, they've got a camera in your face, and it's like they have the one good moment, and they want to document that one good moment because they know that the overall moments aren't going to be good.
I knew somebody that like would get upset if their person didn't post about them enough, and I've dated someone like that, and I'm just not that guy.
I'm not either.
Like, and it's not that I'm like hiding you from the world. I'm just like, I just don't think about it, I guess.
I don't feel the need to put our relationship on display.
Yeah.
I am all for showing off, like when we're out, or when I introduce somebody. Like, I mean, we were at last, I was probably last weekend, we were just at church. And like, my girlfriend walked up to me, and the guy that I was standing next to was like, man, she's beautiful, isn't she? I was like, yep, she sure is. Like, that's the kind of thing where I like to show off, or if she's walking and we're in a room full of people, I love putting her on the spot and be like, dang, you're gorgeous. Like making her uncomfortable, but not really kind of thing. But that's, to me, showing off somebody, because it's the moments that matter. And, I'll put like, a picture of a story or whatever. And, the other day I just posted a picture, was like, I'm thankful for you. Like, it doesn't need to be this, like 8-paragraph essay with a thesis statement on why you think this person is, right for you. I don't feel the need to put my relationship on display like that.
Yeah. I am definitely a big live in the moment person. And what we do and our experiences, it's like for us to have. Not that I wouldn't ever post about it. It's just like I'm such a different person that like it's not something that I think about all the time.
Yeah,
Like
I agree.
I'm like, oh, we had a really great date. Oh, let's post about it. I was like, no, I'm just gonna think about it.
Yeah, we already had the great date. Like, we don't need to relive it again.
Yeah.
Relive it in your mind. Have another one. Make another great date.
Yeah, go on a vacation between you two and don't tell anybody.
Right.
And then you can just look back and I'm like, oh, remember when we just did that thing over the weekend? Most interesting thing is when people that have those, like, they post nothing but their significant other, and then they break up and they got to clean up the feed.
Oh my gosh, they have to delete like 180 pictures. You're like, good luck with all that.
Yeah, you're going to miss one.
You're going to miss one.
And then their most last post will be like like a different year because all they posted was their significant other.
Well, and to be fair and to be honest, I have been that kind of person before where I was in a relationship and it was expected that you posted about things all the time. And if you didn't, then it was showing a lack of appreciation or
you don't care.
Oh, you don't care about me kind of thing, which is, I think it's a very manipulative way of looking at it. Like, you're forcing me to adhere to your rules because you would accuse me of something that I obviously know is not true, and I want you to believe is not true. Like, I don't want you to think that I don't care about you, so of course I'm going to do something that you think is like me expressing my care.
Yeah, because it's not much to go out and post a picture.
Right. But my version of expressing care is like doing something like, showing up when you're sick with medicine, or meeting you for lunch and bringing you lunch, bringing you flowers randomly. Like, those are my ways of, because I'm like an old fashioned person. I'm not, and if I were to be like, oh, I want to express, like, oh, I want to show this person I'm thinking about them. Like, my first instinct is not to go post a picture on Instagram.
I'm going to call you.
I'm going to call you. I'm going to shoot you a heartfelt text. I'm going to, send you flowers. Like, when we were in Japan, I sent Gabby flowers because I was like, and I had planned doing this weeks before we even left because I knew that this would be, kind of hard for the both of us. It was like, this is the longest that we'd gone without hanging out and seeing each other. And so it was hard on the both of us. And so I figured if I, planned ahead a couple days into us being in Japan, sent her some flowers, like, it would be like that, hey, midweek, still got a week left, but I'm still thinking about you kind of thing. And it went off super well. And I didn't, make a big deal. She didn't take a bunch of pictures and tag them on, and like repost it, a throwback Thursday. Oh, the time that my boyfriend got me flowers 6 months ago. I just, I think it's funny. Do you think AI will affect friendships?
I mean, if they became more involved, but right now they're so, I guess, just tied to devices. It's hard to say what the future holds. Unless you get into like robotic stocks, then that's a different beast entirely.
Well, I mean, I think, it could be argued that AI would further disconnect friendships, because if you don't have to have a human friendship that you have to like get to know, you can have like a ex machina kind of AI system.
That's such a cool movie.
That you're friends, and that person just is always around, and you can program them to say whatever you want. That could further disconnect people's relationships with other people. Yeah. I mean, shoot, there are guys in Japan that are marrying computer programs.
Whatever makes them happy.
I guess.
Not what I would do, but
if the population in your country is shrinking because no one's having children, then what are you going to do about that?
Well, I don't live there, so I can't speak on it.
That's true. I think it's there's so many things that could potentially. That's why I think friendships are so fragile, because something as simple as ease of access causes people to lose their friendships with people.
You think there's people that like confess to Siri, like diary-esque, like memos? Like they talk to Siri as like a companion.
Oh, I don't doubt it. Dude, there's 7 billion people on the earth. I don't I don't discount one person out of those 7 billion being lonely and talking to the phone that talks back to him.
Captain's log.
Series log 1224. Today was hard.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Like having legit conversations
with Siri.
Hey Siri, how's it going? Good. Shut up.
Oh, your Siri activated.
Siri activated. He's like, how's it going? Good. How are you? I'm okay. Would you like to talk about it? If Siri ever said that to me, I'm switching. I'm going Android.
I could see them like introducing like a therapeutic Siri that does like just hears you out. Doesn't need to give you advice, because I don't know what advice Siri would give you.
Well, that would be hard because of the whole, of laws that govern therapists, and
yeah,
certain advice could be destructive, and then if someone gets into the Siri, and then you have this whole like
he's telling you to do something.
Yeah, Siri's telling you to go murder some family.
Ugh.
Some Charles Manson stuff right there.
This isn't AI, but it's more like in automation. But I saw a video recently that there's like a pizzeria in the East Coast, and rather than having servers, they had a little robot come and hand you your meals. And some people were just like, oh, why would you want this? But then they're like, oh, you also don't tip this robot. So there's the trade-off. Would you rather, have a automated little pizzeria bot or the real person asking for a tip?
Where does it end? I mean, tipping somebody isn't to the point where I'm like, man, I would rather
not,
several thousands of people lose their jobs. Like, where does it end? One pizzeria has a robot delivering food. What if all pizzerias decide, and then it jumps to all restaurants? So then you start having robot servers. How many people are servers and make their living as a server?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking millions potentially of jobs gone. And, what are all those people supposed to do? How difficult would that then make my life? If all of these people no longer have jobs, would I rather go back to the days where I just had to slip a $5 to the waitress? Like,
there's people that are really against tipping, though. As I've been seeing that on Twitter, it's like, the interesting thing is when servers or, waiters, whatever, post on Twitter like, oh, there's one I saw where it's like, oh, this person for a $90 check only tipped $3, and the person's like, oh, did you mean to put 10 or whatever? And they'll expose them, and they get a bunch of retweets and favorites, all this stuff, and then you see the replies, and those things or those people are saying, oh, he doesn't need a tip anyways, like, you get paid anyways. And so some people were just like, oh, those people asking for the tips, like, that's what their fate's going to look like, is the automation.
Well, I think the perspective that it's expected is what makes me not want to tip. When, like my sister, for instance, I love her to death, but she's a server, and when she goes out, anywhere she goes, she tips like 25-30%.
Wow.
Every time. Someone could spit in her food in front of her. On a $20 tab, she's going to put a $10 tip down. $6 tip. And it's like, I understand the
because
idea.
You're in that.
Well, and I understand the idea behind tipping. If my like stance on it and my approach to it has always been, if I deserve, or like, you tip me what you feel I deserve. So when I used to work at the coffee shop, I would put my effort in. I would be friendly. I would ask people how their day is going. I would be fast. I would, try and get their drink out quick and make sure that it's absolutely right. And I would, if someone, got a new drink for the first time, I would always have that person try the drink before they left, and if they didn't like it, I would immediately remake them something for free. It's like going above and beyond, right?
Yeah.
Then, if that person tips me, then I feel like it's earned. But I am never like, oh, like, here's your coffee, sir.
Doing the bare minimum.
Yeah, here's your coffee, sir. Where's my money? I noticed that you didn't put anything in the tip jar. Like, no. It's extra. That person doesn't have to give you any money. Tipping was created when the times that you would pay for your food before you got it.
Like a deposit.
Restaurants, any type of restaurant that you would go to, there's a certain point where it switched, but even like sit-down restaurants, you would go and you would pay for your food and you would tip them to ensure prompt service.
Mm.
And so the idea that, you know, now that we pay after we eat and it's expected that you tip, you know, and to the point where, you know, that person's like, oh, well, they only left $3 on a $90 bill. Like, okay, what if the restaurant, what if two people, I mean, I've gone out to dinner before where it's two people. Gabby and I went out to Lake Oswego Grill. Two people, the bill was like $120.
Oh.
The person's not working extra hard serving two people when they came to our table 3 times the entire night. They brought us our drinks, they took our order, and then they brought us our check. They didn't even bring us our food. Is it expected that I tip that person 20% of $120? I'm supposed to make my $120 bill $140 because you brought us water, took our order, and then brought the check? Like, what's that about? What's that about? Make that make sense.
Yeah, I always I don't like to read, but it's interesting reading the back and forth between those who work in the serving industry and those who are like, no, I don't tip.
Well, I don't like the mentality behind the service industry with the entitlement. Like, there is a serious case of entitlement going on where people feel that they're entitled to more than what they deserve. I've had servers that have been great, and I know the difference between a good server, a great server, and a horrible server. And if you wow me as a server, like Gabby and I went out to dinner at Olive Garden, and this chick was working like 8 tables, was like running back and forth, came to our table probably 7-8 times. Some people would think that's annoying. She filled our water like 3 times, brought us breadsticks. We never were waiting for anything. You know, it was quick, prompt, whatever. I gave her like a $20 tip. I was like, dude, you're awesome. I even wrote on the receipt, hey, great job. You did a spanking job. Like, awesome.
You earned that.
Yeah, you earned that. And I did. I gave her like a $20 tip. And those are the kind of moments where it's like, you know, yeah, you deserve it. But if you just, you know, do the bare minimum, why do you deserve $20? They still feel like they're entitled to that money just because they chose the job that they did.
I've also seen that like the reason tipping is even a thing comes to the fact of like how little they get paid, but the reason they get paid so little is because the food needs to be set at a certain price, and if their wages were not that rate, that the food would be more expensive. So like you go to IHOP and a meal for like a burger and fries is like $9. Now if the workers were paid a higher amount, that burger would then turn into like a $20 meal. This is what I've just heard. I don't know the exact facts, but
well, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, don't choose a minimum wage job if you don't want to get paid minimum wage. It all comes down to choice. You chose that job. If I choose to go work at McDonald's and then expect to get paid $20 an hour, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. You're an idiot, and I'll call you out. You are an idiot if you think that you deserve more than minimum wage for working at a minimum wage job. The argument then comes into, well, should minimum wage be raised? No, I disagree. If you raise minimum wage, basic inflation raises the price of everything else. A business owner, if he has to pay his employees $16 an hour, he has to charge $20 for a burger.
Makes sense.
It's the way it goes. So I struggle with, and that's what I mean. Again, people feel entitled, and you have these people that talk about things, and that's I guess a big pet peeve of mine with Twitter, and it's just unfiltered access to just nonsense.
Yeah,
People can just say whatever they want, and it can be wrong as all wrong, and they don't need to know what they're talking about to talk about it.
Yeah, I remember that particular tipping post, and there were a lot of replies that like, because you did that act and said that comment of like, oh, did you mean to put $15? And like, I would have crossed it out and you would have got nothing.
Oh yeah, 100%. I would have tipped you $0. I'd have been like, great.
Have
You're
you ever
not getting anything?
Have you ever tipped $0?
Oh, 100%. I've done it a few times.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the cause? Just bad service.
Bad service. Or I'll tip like, I'm not proud of this, but I'll tip the change to make it an even.
Oof. That's just like, you're worthy of sins. Which is bad. But I mean, I don't know what your experience was like.
Well, I mean, I've had several bad experiences. Like, they make my food wrong, and I go to send it back, and they give me grief. And like, I'll be with my family. I've been out like with my family, and my dad is very adamant on not getting his food comped. So like, we went to IHOP, had horrible service. We were there for almost 2 hours, and it was like the four of us. And the food was cold. All of our meals were wrong. It took like 45 minutes to get the food, and then we tried to send it back, and it took another 45 minutes to get the food again. And the guy goes and was like, I'm so sorry about this. Like, we're going to take care of your meal. My dad was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not complaining because I want a free meal. I'm complaining because I want this right. Like, make it right or we're going to leave. And he went back and forth with the manager for like probably 10 minutes. The guy ended up comping the meal, and my parents have never been back to that IHOP ever since. Because my dad, growing up, he grew up with people in his life that would complain to get their food discounted and comped. And so he was like, I'm not complaining because I just want my food right, bro. And in those cases, I'm pretty sure he didn't give a tip.
Makes sense.
But I've had circumstances where you go to send food back and they're like, they give you grief for them making a mistake. And it's like, I'm not trying to be a dick here. I just want my food right. Like,
just what I ordered.
Yeah, I just want what I ordered.
You asked me what I wanted.
I have a dietary restriction. When people try and give me a hard time when I send things back because of cheese, especially, if I've not asked, then that's my bad, and I'm super apologetic about it. But, most of the time I'm pretty adamant and pretty good at making sure that I don't have dairy. And it's not by choice. I don't like the fact that I can't have cheese. Trust me. I hate it. But I can't have it. And so when someone makes my food, especially fast food, if I go to a fast food joint, pull through the drive-thru and pull away and there's cheese on my stuff, like especially if I've gotten home, there's
You're not going back.
Nothing worse than that. Oh, sometimes I go back. I'm pissed because I have to go back. Because I can't eat. If I haven't eaten all day and I get a burger, go home, there's freaking cheese on it, and I can't just scrape the cheese off, I am like out of food now. Oh, great. Now I don't get to have dinner because y'all messed up.
It's a cruel world we live in.
It's a cruel world we're living in. Well,
this has been another episode.
It's been real.
Would you say it's been fun?
I would.
All right.
I wouldn't say it's been real fun, though.
Just fun.
Just fun.
All right, man.
All right, bros. Cheers.
Cheers.